Welcome to Buzz Leaps, your daily explainer. Here's a comic stat for you. 55% of employers who fired staff to replace them with AI already regret it and are scrambling to rehire. So, are robots really stealing your job? Or are executives just using tech to cover up bad math? What you're about to learn will completely change how you see AI, the future, and Buzz Leaps. Okay, let's dive into this. To really figure out what's going on in the labor market right now, we need to analyze why firms use AI as a scapegoat for poor management decisions. I mean, looking at the headlines, you'd think we're stuck in some sci-fi movie where bots are literally handing out pink slips by the water cooler. But look at the reality here. During the pandemic, tech giants and massive corporations went on this absolute hiring frenzy. They massively overhired. Now, interest rates are up, investors are demanding efficiency, and they've got to trim the fat. But instead of just admitting, whoops, we totally miscalculated our growth, it's way better PR to say, hey, we're dynamically restructuring to embrace the AI revolution. It is literally the C-suite equivalent of the dog ate my homework. And honestly, the results of this whole strategy are pretty comical. Look at this Gartner study. 80% of companies deploying AI cut their staff to pay for it, but saw absolutely zero correlation with any increase in return on investment. Basically, slashing headcount to fund a shiny new AI chatbot, it mostly just doesn't work. We're watching the hilarious reality of corporate backpedaling in real time. Picture this, right? A company fires 30 people to buy some hyped-up AI agent, but when they actually roll it out, it turns out the AI can't handle the nuance, it starts hallucinating data, and totally infuriates their clients. The work those 30 people were doing didn't magically disappear. It just got dumped onto the remaining totally burned-out employees until productivity completely tanked. And now, those exact same companies are quietly paying recruiters top dollar to rehire the talent they just kicked out the door. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the exaggeration. When we actually discuss data showing no clear AI labor disruption in the current market, all those doom and gloom narratives just fall apart. Take Goldman Sachs, for example. They estimate that across the entire economy, only about 2.5% of jobs are actually at risk of direct displacement by our current AI tools. A whopping 97.5% of jobs are either completely safe or they'll simply be augmented, meaning the human stays right where they are and the AI just acts like an ultra-fast assistant to help them work faster. And you know what? This trend holds up no matter where you look globally. Up in Canada, 3 years into this generative AI boom, overall employment is still actively growing. Over in the US, studies are finding essentially zero aggregate unemployment effect that you can directly pin on AI. Even in the tech sector, which is supposed to be ground zero for this whole so-called earthquake, the data tells a totally different story. The massive layoffs we saw in late 2022 and 2023, those started before ChatGPT even launched. They were driven by financial market corrections and soaring interest rates, not just AI. So macroeconomically speaking, there is just no large-scale robot-induced job loss happening yet. But what actually happens when a company does try to fire you and pin the blame on a bot? Well, across the globe, we are starting to discuss the legal pushback against using AI efficiency as sole grounds for termination. Check out this incredible quote from a landmark ruling by the Hanzhou Intermediate People's Court in China. They explicitly ruled that a company absolutely cannot terminate an employee just by claiming, hey, AI is more efficient now. The court stated that bringing in new software does not meet the legal threshold of a major change in objective circumstances that you'd need to legally cancel an employment contract. The legal framework they used here is absolutely fascinating because they explicitly explain that AI is a strategic management tool rather than an external shock. Think about it. Historically, if a massive factory burned to the ground, okay, that's an unforeseeable external shock. You have to let people go. But buying a new software subscription, that's a totally voluntary, strategic, internal management decision. The court completely shut down that corporate shortcut. They declared that employers have to demonstrate due process, they have to consult with the team, and they have to offer retraining before they even think about eliminating roles. You simply can't pass the cost of your tech upgrades onto your workers without showing your math. And this exact same legal logic is spreading like wildfire. Over in Europe, the EU has implemented some incredibly strict HR guardrails under their new EU AI Act. Now, any AI used for recruiting, screening, or managing workers is officially classified as high risk. They enforce the intended purpose doctrine, which basically means you can't sneak around the rules using clever legal loopholes. Then there's the combined systems rule. If you string 5 different AI bots together, the entire chain gets audited. But the absolute kicker, mandatory human involvement. By law, you literally cannot leave a machine completely in charge of human livelihoods. Which brings us to a really critical crossroad. We can finally contrast the myth of AI displacement with real-world needs for human-led reskilling. Look, the myth out there says AI does everything perfectly from day one and humans are basically obsolete. But the reality? AI is a fantastic prediction engine, sure, but it is utterly devoid of contextual judgment. It has zero emotional intelligence. It literally has no idea why a particular business outcome even matters. Because of this, companies are desperately figuring out that they actually need human supervisors to babysit the AI, audit its outputs, and prevent it from making incredibly confident, catastrophic mistakes. So instead of randomly slashing headcount, this 4-step framework is going to perfectly explain why businesses should prioritize reskilling and training over simple workforce layoffs. First up, you've got to actually map out the roles that are changing. Second, take that massive severance budget you are about to waste on layoffs and fund reskilling instead. Third, actually build proper human-machine operating models. You need a real person officially in charge of the AI handoffs. And fourth, you have to measure workforce morale. Because let's be real, a terrified workforce is an unproductive workforce. Trying to cut your way to growth using AI, it's a total dead end. You literally have to train your way there. Navigating this massive transition really helps emphasize how human skills remain essential despite rapid AI tool growth. Economists are actually calling this the rise of judgment work. The AI can totally handle the routine, rule-based data crunching, but us humans, we take on the contextual judgment. We handle the complex interpersonal communication. We bring the critical thinking needed to look at a beautifully formatted AI-generated report and say, yeah, actually this data makes absolutely no sense in the real world. That is called AI auditing, and trust me, it is quickly becoming the single most important skill of the decade. And this brilliantly illustrates the financial reality of those skills, which is frankly staggering. Workers who actually adapt and develop advanced AI management skills are currently commanding up to a 56% wage premium compared to their peers in standard roles. The market is not paying a premium for people to be replaced. It is literally throwing money at the humans who actually know how to tame the machine and make it genuinely useful in real-world production. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. Whether you're a solo entrepreneur frantically searching for the best AI automation tools for Freelancers 2026, or you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, you can't just buy a shiny new tool and expect magic. We really have to focus on how companies should reframe AI as a strategy rather than an excuse. It requires a deliberate, thoughtful operating model. You aren't just downloading a fun app. You're integrating a brand new, slightly unpredictable digital colleague right into your daily workflow. Which brings us to the final incredibly important question. Are you going to sit around waiting and panicking about some sci-fi robot apocalypse? Or will you step up and become the human supervisor the future desperately needs right now? The data is crystal clear on this. The robots are not here to steal your job. They're actually here to force you into a promotion. The only question is, are you ready to take it? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.